What's up, guys? I'm going to make a basic guide of how I've learned things in the past and what I think is an efficient method to learn things. My audio is shit. I'm sorry. I'm going to remake all these videos eventually, probably. But yeah, anyways, let's just get right into it. Today might turn into kind of a long video, but we'll see. Anyways, so in my opinion, when you're learning anything, you're going to be divided into several different stages. I didn't think too hard about this. This is my instinct on kind of my experience, what the stage is divided into. So you've got the beginning, the middle, then you've got like a cruising zone. Maybe I should use this point. And then the maintenance zone. Okay. So the beginning is arguably like the hardest part, but also can be really fun. So, and I want to mention before I start, during all of this, you should be consistently doing your skill. Okay, and you should always be following your interest when it comes to the skill. So when you're doing the skill, it's like, what do you actually want to learn? Sorry, my ear was very itchy. What do you actually want to learn while you're doing your skill? What are you interested in throughout your skill? So that's always kind of what you should be chasing. And I can talk more about that later if you're confused about that. But it is really important to chase your interest whenever you're learning anything. So at the beginning, what you need to do is just try out the skill. So do the skill, okay? Watch like basic guides and tutorials on whatever it is, whether it's a video game, a new sport. Like for example, sorry, I have a cough, so I'm sucking on like fucking candy. But anyways, for example, if you're doing like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or something, you can just follow whatever the instructor at your school says, right? You don't have to like go out of your way super hard to find tutorials or anything. But if you're playing a video game, I do recommend at least a little bit, like follow some tutorials, get like the basic steps down, kind of how the game flows and things like that. The beginning stage is really just about discovering the skill itself. Okay? So yeah, getting a feel. And then, so by the end of the stage, kind of what you want to do, this can usually take like a couple weeks, a month, is decide, or it can be even longer, depending on like how much time you're putting into it, is decide whether or not this is something you actually want to do. So that's kind of the goal of the beginning stage. Get a feel for the skill, maybe improve a little bit, decide if it's something you want to do. Okay? After that, after you've decided and you've committed to the skill, that's when you're going to enter the middle stage. And the middle stage is really just about, like, for one thing, starting to improve more and more, but really getting your method for learning down. Because by the end of the middle stage, hopefully you've got the method for what you're going to learn down. That's kind of the goal of the middle stage, is to iron out your method and improve while you're doing that. Okay, so basically what does the middle stage involve? Of course it involves doing the skill, because every single stage you're going to be doing the skill. You should honestly be spending a majority of your time doing the skill, but I think at the middle stage you're actually going to need to spend a little more time than you would in the other stages, kind of researching about your skill and watching more material regarding your skill, whatever it is you're learning. Okay, so basically you're going to be doing the skill, and while you're doing the skill, you're also going to be gathering info about the skill. So this info is going to come from watching, for example, if you're playing a sport or you're playing a video game, it's going to come from watching content creators. It's going to come from watching people smurf doing your skill. For example, smurfing in your elo as a higher elo player. It's going to come from watching, anything about your skill itself. Okay, it's going to come from, there was one other thing, but I forgot. But yeah, watching like just competition videos, okay, of your skill. Basically what I would do is find a content creator you like that's educational and watch them. Also during the info gathering stage, you have to remember it's important to watch from a variety of people, because you don't want to get everything from one person, because like, even though I think the basic idea of how to learn something is the same for everybody, you're going to vibe with certain like things more. And like, for example, if you're learning from some guy and he plays like a character you don't play, I kind of feel like that's probably not the best content creator for you. So maybe find somebody that you jive with, and then learning from a variety of people and kind of picking up things here and there. So when you're info gathering, what kind of info are you actually looking for? Well, you're looking for info that's just slightly out of what you already know. Okay, if you try to learn something too difficult, if you try to learn something that's like you're just not ready for, you're actually going to slow yourself down. So what you'll find is that maybe there's something you want to learn, and it's pretty difficult. So you can try to learn that difficult thing, but when you try to learn that difficult thing, you'll notice it's broken down into even smaller steps. And usually those steps will be the I+1 information you're looking for. Okay, usually those steps are going to be the tiny little pieces of information you need to slowly add into your skill. So during the middle phase, you should be trying to get as much of this information as possible. Also during the cruising phase, you're going to be looking for this information. So this I+1 information is really important. And you can't just be getting the information. The most important thing is once you have the information, you have to apply the information, okay? So again, throughout the whole process, you're following your interest, you're learning the things you want to learn. If something you want to learn is too difficult, you're breaking it down into I+1 information, and then you're actually doing your skill. Okay, so you're constantly actually doing the skill, which is what I mean by applying the information. But how do we apply the information we learn? Like, how do we actually take it from something we saw, like in a video or in a book or whatever, wherever it is that you got this information on how to improve or what you should be doing? And how do we apply it? Well, in my opinion, the way you apply it is by first absorbing the information as much as you can, right? Spending a lot of time immersed in this information. And then when you're playing, trying to notice the moments where you deviate from the information you've learned. So trying to notice your mistakes, okay? Because like, really what this information does, it allows you to notice where you need to change your behavior while you're playing, while you're doing your skill, right? So if you watched a Rocket League YouTuber, for example, or maybe you watched a jiu-jitsu video or something, and they told you like, you need to stop wasting so much energy when you're on top of somebody, because on top you should be using less energy and making them expend more energy. But you notice when you're actually rolling, you're gassing out when you get on top too early, and you're not really like pinning your partner down and making them spend energy. But before you watch that video, you wouldn't realize that that might be the problem. Well, you might realize it, but by watching these videos, you should hopefully realize it quicker. So when you make that mistake again, that should ring in your head, oh, I missed something. What did I miss? Oh yeah, from that video, he told me I should be more patient. So next time you get on top, you'll be consciously thinking, oh, I need to be more patient. Okay, and if you do that enough times over and over and over with this new information, those things you have to like kind of consciously notice at first, you eventually start to self-correct, okay, in my experience. So as long as you have the information and you're trying to apply it, or you have the information and you're trying to notice it when you're doing your skill, your subconscious brain is going to start like slowly correct those mistakes you're making, and you'll become much better, okay? Throughout this process too, you can always like have somebody help, like coach you or whatever it is you want to do. You know, I think it's more like, I trust honestly myself and YouTube more than a coach sometimes, but if you really trust your coach and he has the right credentials, then you can definitely follow him. There was something else I wanted to say about this, but anyways, during this time too is also going to be the time where you need to reassess your method. So I kind of just described the way I would do it, but depending on what skill you're learning, the best method might change. So how do we find the best method? Well, what I would find is find somebody who explains what to do, but don't just listen to anybody, right? You have to listen to somebody that actually has credentials in your skill. So for example, if you want to learn Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, okay, find somebody that teaches Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but watch them rolling, watch their game, and see, is that the kind of game that I want to have? Or would I be better off learning from another person that has a different kind of game, right? Or maybe is this person actually like having results in competition, or are they just teaching and they've never actually competed, right? So find out their credentials, find if you actually want to like emulate their style. So I think like when it comes to like Japanese, for example, when I first started learning Japanese, I listened to a lot of different YouTubers, and everyone has their own opinion on how you should learn. So what I did was I listened to them actually speak Japanese, okay? And obviously at the time I didn't 100% know if they were good or not, but then I also watched people's like reviews of them speaking Japanese, and I listened like the way it sounded compared to like native speakers and stuff. And like for me, for example, I thought like Matt versus Japan sounded the best. Okay, there are other really great speakers as well, but I thought he sounded the best, so I thought I'm gonna follow his method because I want the result that he got. Okay, now I don't follow his method exactly. Obviously I tweaked it for me because everyone's gonna have a different like method that they want to do, a different interest they want to pursue. So it's important to keep that in mind throughout the whole process, is that you have to keep your own like personal interest and what motivates you in mind, because it's going to be different for everybody. Okay. So yeah, being able to follow somebody, but then kind of slightly modify it to match your own interest is going to be what I recommend for the middle phase. So yeah, by the end of the middle phase, you should be starting to improve a lot, and you should start to notice that you've kind of got your method down, and you've reassessed what you're actually doing. So you spent some time away from doing your skill. Okay, well, the whole time you were doing your skill, but maybe you spent a little more time trying to figure out what the best method is for your skill. Okay, and you started to gain a lot of information and find information sources for your skill. So this usually takes several months, maybe even like half a year at times, to really like get to a level where you start to feel confident in what you're doing and confident in your method. And the more you've learned skills over and over, the quicker you can probably get through this phase. So this is kind of like the setup, okay? Next, we're getting into the cruising phase. So you've done all the setup in the first 2 stages, and now the conditions are set for you just to keep going. So in the cruising stage, all you have to do is just keep doing what you know you should do every day, okay? So whatever method you're using, all you have to do is just keep applying that here, and you have to be getting new information as well. Okay, so you can't stop gaining information the whole time. So during the cruising phase, you're still immersing in whatever new information you need to be getting about how to improve. So you're still watching people that are better than you, okay? But you're just spending as much time as possible just doing your skill and gaining information and sticking to your method, whatever you're doing. Yeah, so at this point, like, everything should be set up, and all you have to do is just keep going. And this stage can last basically as long as you want. I mean, in this stage, you're still doing like a lot of active effort because you're still trying to get better. You're still getting new information and trying to apply it to your game, just like in the middle stage. Okay, but the middle stage, again, is more about like the setup, the prerequisites, and to getting to the cruising stage where you can just keep going. So like, for example, I'm learning Japanese. At the beginning stage, I watched like a bunch of basic tutorials. I started to, do some basic things like flashcards, and throughout the whole time I was like immersing. So during doing the skill, I would consider that like immersing. And yeah, just basically getting a feel for Japanese, whether it was something I wanted to do or not. In the middle phase, I started researching a lot about like what's the best way to learn the language. And I like found somebody who I thought was a good mentor to follow throughout doing the language, listened to what they did, modified it slightly for myself, created the best method for me, okay? And went through and did all the prerequisites, like setting up, for example, Anki decks and things of that nature. So things that take a little bit of time where you're not directly doing your skill, but you're just working on the setup for the skill, okay? And then finally, I get into the cruising phase, which is what I'm in right now with Japanese, where all I have to do is just keep immersing every day, keep going through the Anki deck that I'm using, okay, keep talking with Japanese people, speaking more. So basically just doing everything that I learned how to do in this phase, just continuing that. Okay, and finally, so during this phase, you should notice that you're improving like way faster than most people and it also depends on how much time you want to spend. So, if you do this 4 hours a day, 5 hours a day, you're going to improve really fast compared to most people. Because again, most people don't even like spend the time to really find the best method for themselves. Most people stick around in like this phase where they're just kind of doing the skill. Maybe they've watched a couple tutorials or whatever, but they're kind of just relying on their own cognition. In the middle phase is where you're going to eliminate all that. You're going to find the best method. You're going to go like find the mentor. You're going to figure out like how to actually learn this skill quickly. Okay. And then in the cruising phase, all you have to do is just keep doing it. And then this is the phase where 3 months go by, 6 months go by, a year go by, and people go, wow, I can't believe how much you've improved. Like, for example, for me, I'm living in Japan for a year. I've been studying Japanese for 3 years, but people always say, wow, you did all this in just a year? And I'm like, yeah, because I just knew what I was doing. Okay, I've done this before. I've learned a lot of skills before. So I just knew what I was doing. And, Japanese people will compliment your Japanese no matter what, basically. But like, I have gotten like a lot of compliments on like, wow, I can't believe like how much Japanese you actually understand. I'm still not amazing at speaking, but like Japanese people have told me like, oh, I met people that, can speak well and like, have like a basic understanding of Japanese, but like they don't understand Japanese like as much as you do, or they don't like, I guess they don't have like the the whole package, right? They don't have the whole package because their method just wasn't like correct from the beginning, right? But I am getting a lot better at speaking now. So anyways, that's for a different story, but whatever. Finally, last thing is the maintenance mode. Okay, so in the maintenance mode, you're finally going to be able to dial down kind of the amount of effort you're putting into the skill. And all you have to do is just do the skill enough to maintain whatever you already have. Okay, so if you don't, you know, for me, this would happen when I got up to around like top 10% to like top 1% of a skill. I would probably just put the skill into maintenance mode, because honestly, once you get to a point where you're top 10%, top 1%, really top 1% is where it really hits. The amount of effort it takes to get better and to change like those really micro like nuances in your skill starts to take a lot more time. And in my opinion, I would rather like focus on something else at that point than continuing to try to get that skill to like the very world-class level, which I did think I wanted to do as a child, but with video games. But honestly, life just took me a different course, so now I'm doing things like this instead, which honestly I think may be better for me overall. But again, yeah, this is the point where basically you can stop consuming content if you want. You can stop trying to get the I+1 information, and you can just cruise and enjoy your skill and enjoy like what you've gotten, because by this point you're kind of like a complete player of whatever it is you're doing. You've mastered it on some level. I mean, the maintenance phase, you might not be a master when you enter the maintenance phase, but for me, I like to enter the maintenance phase when I'm like top 1% or around there, to where I'm basically better than most people at whatever skill it was. And yeah, this is the point where you can just have fun, because you've learned so much that it's become a great way to like express yourself through doing the skill. You probably made some great friends along the way. Like at this point, people are going to be like looking up to you, maybe asking you questions about how you did the skill. They may be impressed when they're like, oh, you did this and that, right? And this is the point where especially if you've done a method like this, you can teach other people how to get where you did. But I'm going to be honest, most people won't listen to you. So most people will just be stuck, you know, in this phase and never really get the method down and never really understand like how to actually process this information and put it into their game. But yeah, that's a basic idea of how I would go about learning a skill. This is very like rough outline. Honestly, I could probably make a video on every single one of these phases, and I'm sure in the future I'll probably change what I think, but I think this is like a basic, you know, fundamental idea of how I've learned many skills in my life. So hopefully this will help you. And if you have any questions or you want me to go into any more detail on any of this, then definitely let me know in the comments. Again, the most important thing though is that you are doing your skill the whole time. Okay, you have to be actively doing whatever it is. So maybe if you're playing, like you want to be a good chess player, you have to be playing chess. Like that should be the majority of what you're doing. Like don't fool yourself into thinking that just because you have everything set up correctly, that it's not going to take like a freaking long time, because it's still going to take a long time. But hopefully by this phase you can like cut down and make the time you spend more efficient. Okay, but you still have to be doing your skill. This should be the most of your time. If anything, like information gathering and doing the skill should be like 60-40 in my opinion. And like the better and better you get, I'd almost argue you could, you know, go 75-25, or, you know, maybe 25% is kind of the limit I would go with either of these. Language learning is a little different, I feel like, but yeah. So you should spend maybe 20-25% of your time gathering information, and then 75% of the time applying it. You know, just go based on how you feel. Like if you feel like you need more information, you might go through like a binge of gathering information for like a couple weeks or something, and then you may go through a binge of just doing the skill more. So you kind of have to follow your interest, like I said. Okay, the most important thing is that like you don't quit throughout this whole process. So that's why it's so important to follow your interest and not push yourself too hard to where you burn out. But yeah, hopefully this was a good description. And yeah, this is my basic formula for how I've learned skills in the past. So if you have any questions, let me know, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a great day.